let's look at how to play If I Can't Have You by Shawn Mendes. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this isn't the kind of music I would normally listen to, but when I heard it, I realized that there's actually quite a nice guitar part throughout the verses. So we'll look at the guitar part that's played throughout the verses. There's also some interesting jazz chords transitioning into the chorus. And then we'll have a quick look at the piano and how you could translate that piano part to the guitar as well. So first, let's have a listen. Okay, so we're playing in the key of B minor. And the chords are G major, F sharp minor, B minor, E minor, E minor again, F sharp minor, G. And then the cycle repeats. There's a great sense of ambiguity to it. It just seems unresolved. It keeps on going and going. And of course, it fits in very well with the lyrics that are of that nature as well. Now, as far as the chord voicings are concerned, they're derived from the same E form chords and A form, which I'll talk about in a second. You're just omitting a few of the notes. So if we look at the charts, if you were to play your standard G, E form bar chord on the 3rd fret. And then take a look at the chart up here. And you'll see you're just omitting notes. And you're playing just these 3. Likewise, we slide that down for the F sharp minor. I believe on the recording, it is an A form, or the A minor form that's played, where I've been playing it up here as an E form. But on the album, you don't hear a slide, which is something that naturally occurs if you're moving up from that F sharp minor. On the recording, you'll just hear. So after the B minor, then down to an E minor. Now, if you were to use that open E form position here, you'd be dealing with open strings, which can be a little unwieldy. So it's nice to instead play the 5th fret on the D string, just to maintain some control over the string. Plays that again, then simply back up to the F sharp minor. And then this time when we play the G, there's a hammer-on from the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. It's very quick. So you need to reposition your fingers. So if your very first chord from the progression is fingered like this, instead you'll be shifting it to 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, 5th finger on the 5th fret of the A string, 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, hammering on your 3rd finger to the 4th fret of the G string. Okay, so again, it's just so you need to remember that hammer-on. Okay, and the only other thing to address here is the rhythm that's used. And actually, one more thing to note is that this is played with palm muting. Okay, and again, if you'd prefer to use the E form chord of the B minor up here, the difference would just be this. That's the guitar from the verse sections. Okay, in the introduction, I mentioned the use of jazz chords. Now, I just wanted to clarify that there's no such thing as jazz chords per se. So when I say jazz chords, I mean chords that are more typically found within jazz. So extended chords, sevenths, 11ths, ninths, etc. Now, of course, within pop music, pop draws from so many different genres and so many different cultures that, at this point, really, you could say that they're pop chords as well, because pop can include everything. Okay, so these three chords, they're not only used to transition into the chorus, they're used to transition to the verses as well. The way that this works is that the basic compositional structure of the song is binary. There's only two sections. There's the verse section and the chorus section. There's an introduction, but the introduction is the chorus, right? And then these three chords are used to transition between those two sections. So it's just back and forth, back and forth. The changes that take place within the song have more to do with instrumentation or production, really, right? So instrumentation, lack of instrumentation, slight changes in feel. Later on in the song, there's a switch to more of a gospel feel. You have that a cappella choir singing and clapping. Another change in the song is one of the verses starts to incorporate synthesizers and reversed guitar in the background. But fundamentally, the composition is A-B with three chords transitioning between those two sections. So these are the three chords. The first chord is a G major seventh. The second one, F sharp minor seventh. And the last chord is an E minor ninth, which in this context sounds beautiful. So just listen to these three chords again. That was a mistake. So listen to these three chords again. Very sincere. When they move into the chorus, the transition sounds like this. And down to a G. Which is a really, really wonderful progression, quite beautiful. And it's almost hidden in the song because you have that, the constant, more of an electronic feel with the kick. But there's these beautiful romantic chords beneath it. Anyhow, the first time these three chords play, they're played just as I did. The second time around, they have the guitar over top. And the guitar over top is playing these three notes. Okay, it's sort of just highlighting the upper part of the chord progression. So that second time around, the chords sound like this. So just listen to the feel of these chords. course, we return back to those 3 chords to transition back to the verses. So then back to that G. Okay, so we're taking those 3 transition chords and applying them to the guitar. So the first time the transition is played, it's leading from the introduction into the verse, into the first verse. It's just the piano playing those 3 chords. The second time the transition is used is transitioning from the first verse into the chorus. And this is where you hear the guitar over top, as I mentioned, highlighting the progression. So the notes that you hear are these. Or maybe minus that slide, but. And then that becomes the pattern for the rest of the piece, that the guitar highlights that progression leading into the chorus, whereas leading into the verse is just the piano. It's the same chords. Now, when I listen to the recording, I definitely hear that the highest note, because the piano isn't playing it. And on the last chord, you can certainly hear what sounds like the percussive nature of the picking producing the chord, but I can't necessarily hear the bottom notes. So my approach is to play the entire chord. Now, if you're actually playing this, say with the piano player, the two of you could decide together how much of that chord you want to play, whether or not it conflicts. The first chord is a G major 7th. And here's the chart. Second chord is the F sharp minor 7th, which we're playing as an A form, or A minor form, A minor 7th form. Okay, and then down to that E minor 9th. Okay, so again, the sound is. And that's it. Okay, we're back at the piano to have a look at the chorus. The chorus only consists of 3 chords. So we'll look at those 3 chords and then we'll go back to the guitar again to look at different ways of approaching it on the guitar. But you should note that in the recording, the guitar doesn't play during the chorus. Or there might be one part where it plays a small part, but it doesn't play these chords. Okay, and the bass notes are just G, F sharp, and E. The chords are G, and instead of F sharp, it's D major. Now, F sharp is the third, the major third in D major, so that's what's in the bass. And then E minor. Okay, so again, the chords are G major, D major, but with the major third in the bass, the F sharp, E minor, back to that D, to the G, to the D, E. On the second chord, the bass has a grace note, or a little roll into the chord. So. And then, of course, it goes back into the transition. Okay, so now let's take those chords and apply them to the guitar. So we'll look at just one way of doing this, but keep in mind on the guitar there's so many different ways of playing chords, and once you have the chord names, you can go through and come up with your own variations. So the chords are G, which will play as a power chord, D major, which again has the F sharp in the bass, but will also play as similar to a power chord on those 3 strings, and then E minor, back to the D, back to the G. So it's very straightforward. And it also allows us to include that grace note. Okay, so again, there are other ways of playing this. You could open up the chords a little bit if you choose. Tuning sounds a bit off there. You could play it in a higher register, which of course doesn't have that deep bass to it. Okay, and again, then afterwards it would roll directly into the transition. And then into the verse. Okay, and that's it for this video. I hope you found this helpful, or at least interesting. Maybe you too were able to look at a song that you wouldn't normally look at. Thank you for watching.